Hi, today I washed my hair and because of that I decided to make a video. It's as simple as that. I do read quite a bit and I do want to make more content about books, so here I am in January, first month of the year, and I want to talk about some books that I have read this month because I realized I read quite a bit of good books that made me think. Interesting feeling. Never done that before. Let's just go over them and see, maybe you find something that you also want to read. This wasn't a good idea to put the books that I'm gonna talk about underneath this. It's gonna constantly change height. Okay, anyways, the first book that I want to talk about is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I started this book in, I think, April last year. I read about half of it and then I forgot. It's not that I wasn't interested. I was really intrigued by the book and I really enjoyed it. But I think it was also because I was graduating at that time and I was so stressed. And I know that usually when people are stressed, they like to read fantasy or just fiction for escapism. For me, it's the other way around. I cannot read fantasy, sci-fi, anything fictional. And during graduation, yeah, I was kind of stressed. I just put down all of the fiction that I was reading and just read non-fiction, like a middle-aged man that I am. And I completely forgot about this book until December, and I decided, you know what, I want to read it by the end of the year. I want to finish the year with a banger, which I'm happy to announce this was. However, I did finish it exactly 2 days after the New Year's Eve, but we're not gonna talk about that. It was finished in December, right? So this is a fantasy book. It's a historical fantasy retelling about the Ming Dynasty's first emperor, and it follows a girl who during famine loses both her brother and her father, and she decides to take her brother's identity and becomes Zhu Zhongba. And throughout the story she learns that she's destined for greatness and she will do anything to reach it. And the story is about that. I really did enjoy this book. There was a lot of quotable lines. It's so well written and I really enjoyed going through this story and seeing this main character. She's very determined and, as I said, she's going to do anything to get to her destiny. There's a lot of interesting characters and I liked their dynamic. And the most interesting thing about this book is that it is a queer historical retelling. Our main character is a girl who has to disguise herself as a man. Through that we also get this theme of self-discovery, and I think it was just very well done in this book. Since this is a duology, I also picked up the second book, which is the final book in this series, and I'm really looking forward for that because from how the things ended in the first book and what I know about this one, I'm really looking forward to see where the story takes us. The next book that I want to talk about is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is a magical realism story and it follows a man called Piranesi who lives in a house that contains the ocean and infinite amount of statues. Besides him, there is another man called the Other that lives in this house, which Piranesi claims that is the world. But as we go through the story, we realize that they're not the only people living there and we uncover more and more mysteries. I do want to say that when I went into this book, I did not know what to expect because I had no idea what it was about. I didn't even read the synopsis of the story. This was the book that was picked for the book club that I was part of for January. I thought this was just gonna be some Greek retelling. By the cover of the book, I don't know where I'm gonna put it, somewhere here. Like by the cover I thought it was gonna be some myth retelling, I don't know, and it turned out to be completely different than what I expected. When I tell you, when things started to happen in the book, I could not put it down. This book is an epistolary novel, and in this case it is written in a form of journals. We're following Piranesi, this man who is very a scholarly type of a person, and when I first started reading I was very confused because I didn't know it was written in that way. And just in general, the book is very beautifully written. It took me some time to get used to it because, as I said, I knew nothing about this book coming into it. And the thing that stood out to me the most about this whole story was not just the plot, but the way the imagery was described. The descriptions were very vivid, very magical. Piranesi lives in this house that can be described as a labyrinth, and the idea for the labyrinth came from the painting from Giovanni Battista Piranesi, who is an Italian archaeologist and architect, and he created this painting of infinite staircases, which is actually funny because I saw that painting live. I think it is in the, oh god, wait, what's the name? Castel Sant'Angelo? Yeah, I think. I think that's it. And I was there and I saw the drawing, but things didn't click in my brain until later on, after I read Piranesi. So that was fun. Yeah, fun fact that Castel Sant'Angelo was used as Pope's prison, not to imprison Pope, but for Pope to imprison others. But enough beating around the bush. Yes, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Really beautifully written, really beautiful story. It is not a Greek retelling, that's all I can say, so just go ahead and read it. Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree. Bookshops and Bonedust is a cozy fantasy story which is a prequel to Legends and Lattes. So we're also following the same character, Viv. However, in this story we learn what happened before she decided to open up a cafe. Basically, Viv is trying to kill some time in the small town that she found herself in after injuring her leg badly, so she couldn't follow her team, and now she's just waiting for them and going around the town, and she meets Fern, who is running a bookstore, and she helps her renovate it, redecorate it to try and attract more customers. I did like Legends and Lattes a lot, but dare I say, I did enjoy Bookshops and Bonedust a bit more. I think it boils down to two reasons why. The first one is I listened to it as an audiobook, and it was narrated by the author Travis Baldree, who is a professional narrator. It was really amazing. I listened to Stardust last year, which is a fantasy story by Neil Gaiman. It was narrated by Neil Gaiman as well. And I was just blown away by his talents. I mean, he's obviously a talented writer, but he's also such a talented narrator. And I felt the same now while listening to Travis Baldree. His voice is really nice. And I found myself laughing a couple of times with the accents that he chose for certain characters. And he would, of course, change his voices. And it was just very engaging. What I like the most about his stories is when I was listening to Legends and Lattes, I was obsessed with coffee. And I was constantly thinking about how I'm going to make coffee. But this I listened to as an audiobook, and while I would listen to it, I would always cook. It was a vibe. It was really a vibe, and I think that's what cozy fantasy is all about. Vibes. Happy, cozy vibes. But the other reason why I think I enjoyed Bookshops and Bonedust more than Legends and Lattes is because it was about books. It was about Viv helping out this bookstore owner, and she would always recommend Viv some moist books, if you catch my drift. I don't know, it's like reading a book about books. Can it get better? And my favorite part was the fact that the whole small town really loved this one author that I'm pretty sure in our world would just be an erotica author. There was a character who is an author of the books in this world, and she writes kind of, yeah, smutty books. And I just really loved it, how a lot of this small town folk just really loved her writing. I don't know, it was so wholesome. It made me feel very warm inside. I would definitely recommend, if you do plan on reading Bookshops and Bonedust, listen to it as an audiobook. It is, as I said, very well narrated. There was this one character, so Travis Baldree did different voices and accents for different characters, and there was this one character who was, I believe, the head of the guard in this small town. I really enjoyed her accent, but it wasn't just like her accent, it was also like how she behaved. You know how in Sims 4, when you're making a character, you can customize their voice, the way they talk? So it kind of reminded me of that, how every character was customized. But this character had a very interesting way of talking. She was talking like this, and if you talk to her, she's not going to respond back, because, like, who do you think you are, you know? She's way better than you, so go away. And every time that she talked, I would imagine that police officer from Madagascar 3. By the way, it's all fantasy creatures in this story, from what I remember, yeah. But every time when this character pops up, I'm immediately thinking, ah yeah, the police officer from Madagascar 3. I don't know why. Same energy, I guess. The next book I'm gonna talk about has a very interesting name, and it's That Time I Got Drunk and Saved the Demon. So this is the first book in the Mead Mishaps series by Kimberly Lemming. And I read before this Mistletoe, which is a novella that is also set in this Mead realm, I believe. And I listened to that as an audiobook. And then I saw that she has a whole series in which so far there are 3 books with one bonus novella. When I saw the titles, I was, yeah, I need to read that. It's a fantasy romance story, and I'm not gonna talk about it too much because I'm making a separate video talking about all of these books. But but That Time I Got Drunk and Saved the Demon is the first one, and it follows our main character, Cinnamon, who does not want to live the life of a chosen one. She just wants to live her chill life chilling, enjoying her time, you know. However, the universe has something else in store for her. For after she saves a demon, she has to help him destroy the witch that is controlling his people. And I just have to say, all of the characters have such interesting names. It's kind of, I mean, it's like a fantasy comedy romance. But one thing that triggered me the most in this book is we have Cinnamon, our main character, Brie, her best friend, Cumin and Chili, her brothers. And do you know what is the name of an actual fantasy creature in this story? Fallon. When I saw that name, I was thinking like, demon called Fallon. Really? We have all these interesting names, but no, he has to be called Fallon. Why is that? Was that a joke? Like, was that a joke? I don't know. But Fallon. It reminds me of Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. The main guy there is called Jack Smith. Yeah, I believe it's Jack Smith. Who's called Jack Smith? That name sounds so basic to the point that it becomes unique because of how basic it is. I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't get it. Anyways, Jack Smith and Fallon aside, read this book. I'm gonna talk about it more in the video where I'm gonna talk about all the books from this series. Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. So this is a fantasy story about a woman called Kissin who lost her whole family because of a fire god, and she is a god killer in this world where worshipping gods is forbidden. However, when she meets a girl called Inara who has a specific problem with the god, she has to go on a trip where the last of the gods are living in currently, and on the road they also meet a baker knight who joins them in this adventure. And this is going to be a trilogy, meaning this is the first book in the Fallen Gods series. The next one is going to come out, I believe it's set for February 15th or something like that. I'm gonna try to get the second book as fast as possible because yes, this is a very captivating story. For such a short book, it contains a lot. There's a lot of things that I enjoyed. The first one was world building. I saw that a lot of people online were commenting how the book was very slow paced in the beginning and that it took some time for the plot to develop, but I really liked the slow pace that it was going with because it allowed us to grow with the characters and also to get to know this world that they're living in. The relationships between characters, I think, are one of the most important takeaways from this book. This book was marketed as if you enjoyed Witcher, you're going to enjoy this book. But I think the main reason why they compare it to Witcher is because of the relationship between Geralt and Ciri. It's kind of similar to the relationship we have here between our main characters Kissin and Inara. This is a medieval fantasy setting, but imagine medieval times but lesbian. Yeah? Interested? Good. It's a very good queer representation, and it's also a very good representation about disabilities. Our main character is missing a part of her leg. Then we have another character that is in wheelchair, another character that is deaf. It also had good descriptions of PTSD and trauma, and overall the writing was really well done. Same way how I mentioned for Piranesi that I couldn't stop reading. Similar happened here. It took me some time to get into it in the beginning, but once I got to know the characters, I was hooked. I was partially reading it as a physical book and partially listened to it as an audiobook because one evening I just decided to draw and I was thinking might as well listen to it as an audiobook, and then I unconsciously listened to like 100 pages of it, and I was reaching towards the end and I had I think like 80 pages left, so I just went to sleep, woke up and immediately finished the story. I'm proud of myself for even like, you know, going to sleep, but yeah, I just immediately wanted to finish it because it was very exciting and it ended on a very nice cliffhanger, so I'm really looking forward for the second book. But also I'm kind of thinking maybe I should wait with reading the second book so that I don't have that much time waiting for the third book. The last book that I'm going to talk about, but not exactly talk about, is Equal Rites by Terry Pratchett. I also have a very nice bookmark for it. You see? A witch. You know why? Because it's about witches and wizards. The main premise of this book is that we have this main character, Esk, who is destined to be a wizard, but how can she become a wizard in a world where wizards are only men and witches are only women? Read to find out. I still haven't finished this book actually, so I'm also not gonna talk that much about it. I only read 2 other Terry Pratchett books up until this point, and Small Gods by Terry Pratchett was the first book that I ever read, and it is still my one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. One thing that Terry Pratchett does so well is makes a very absurd fantasy story that still hits you. One thing that I enjoyed in Small Gods was the fact that it's a Discworld novel. Of course, it's going to be very ridiculous in its concept, but it talked about religion and philosophy, and normally that's considered like a taboo topic, but he really discussed it, and in a very profound way. And I'm so sad that I didn't get introduced to his writing when I was a teenager. I think I would have loved his works even more than I do now already. But yeah, as I said, I'm not gonna talk too much about it because I plan on making a separate video for this, talking about the themes of this book. Yeah, it's good. Read it. Haha, my phone decided to pull a prank on me and stop recording, but I guess I did it in a good time because I stopped talking about all the books that I wanted to discuss, so all is well. Thank you for watching this video. If you've read any of these books, please share it in the comments, tell me what you thought about them, and yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye bye.